Doctors recommend regular exercise to manage stress. We recommend that you just watch the Bengals defense. Same result. Elevated heart rate, yelling, "I can't do this," and the occasional tears. The Justin Kinner Show, your official cardiac clinic for the Bengals.
Well, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to approach what the hell happened yesterday. I'm trying to figure out, do I need to handle you Bengals fans with kids' gloves, or can we all just agree that, well, that Pop Warner team down on the river, as Steve from Springboro likes to call them, I think it's reached all new levels of low, right? Like, does it get any worse than what we saw yesterday? We welcome you in. Happy Monday, or maybe just for some of you Monday. I don't know how happy a lot of you are, but it is the Justin Kinner Show here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. You can also catch us live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. And of course, if you missed the show, you can find us and then go back and listen to the show wherever you get your podcast. But let's, I think we all know how the show's opening. I think we all know what we're diving into, right? I think we all know what everyone wants to talk about is it Shador time in Cleveland? No, I'm just joking. It's we're going to get to the Shador time in Cleveland. I think it has to happen, but that's not really what this is about. Your final yesterday at Paycor Stadium, the Chicago Bears put up 47 points on your Cincinnati Bengals and won 47-42. Joe Flacco threw for 470 yards. He threw 4 touchdowns. And the Cincinnati Bengals for back-to-back weeks put up a ton of points on the board, and they just cannot get the job done. And now we sit here, and I feel like we just have the same show every week. Man, at the end of the day, that Bengals defense really wasn't good. Man, that Bengals offense was pretty good. Man, I can't believe we lost the game. What other fresh hot takes can I truly deliver when it comes to your Cincinnati Bengals? I mean, this is just outright embarrassing. There are bad defenses, and then there's the Cincinnati Bengals. There are guys who can't tackle, and then there's the Cincinnati Bengals. There are bad teams in the NFL, and then there is the Cincinnati Bengals. Everybody, it's just I don't get it. I don't get it. And like a lot of times I like to use a moment whenever I can go back and play something and say, look, I was right about something. I was right about this team. I was right about the Cincinnati Bengals defense. I was right about the firing of Lou Anarumo. I was lying. I was right about the hiring of Al Golden. It was all just a dumpster fire decision. The Cincinnati Bengals, it was easy to get Joe Burrow. It was easy to get Jamar Chase. It was easy to get T. Higgins. It's easy to get those guys when you win 6 games in 2 years. You won 2 games, you got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, right? I'm sorry, you got T. Higgins. You won 4 games, you got Jamar Chase. Some of the guys you got during that mix as well, you were able to draft Logan Wilson. He wants to get the hell out of Dodge. You look at the fact that Trey Hendrickson was actually one of the best free agent gets over the last 5 years for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they have literally nothing to show for it. The bottom line is yesterday was just, I think yesterday was the breaking point. How no heads are rolling right now. Like, we all know Duke Tobin's going nowhere. I don't think Zach Taylor's going anywhere, and I'm not even necessarily saying that he should. But how Al Golden is still employed today is just beyond me, and I don't care how hot take-ish that sounds. The reason it's not a hot take, my hot take about Al Golden, the reason it's not hot is because he never should have been hired to begin with. Al Golden was the absolute worst freaking hire that the Bengals could have made, and they went in the direction not to improve the defense, but because it was to save money. I'm telling you right now, every little vibe about this Bengals organization is we were bullied into paying our players, and now we're going to take it out on you, and that's exactly what it seems to be. What seems to be going on here. They didn't mind paying Joe Burrow. They figured that was going to be the case, but they also figured that if we paid a guy, that he would actually be able to sneeze and not be on the IL or on the injured list or whatever the hell we call it in football. We would like to pay a quarterback a lot of money and not have him, be out for 2 months, 3 months every time he sneezes. We would like to be able to use our money to spend it on our players and divvy it up throughout the roster, but we'd like to do it, not be bullied by our fans and the media into putting it all into 3 players, all on the offensive side of the ball, all on a roster. They can't protect the quarterback. They can't run the damn football. That also can't tackle. They can't stop anybody. Special teams always up and down in a mess. I mean, this is just, this situation right now in Cincinnati, I don't know how you make it to the end of the year without somebody losing their job. I don't know how you make it to the end of the season without somebody losing their job. And because we know how this is going to go, the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to move on from anybody. And I'm not a big advocate of calling for people's jobs. I'm not a big fan of teams firing guys in the middle of the season. But you heard it yesterday. You heard the players in the post game. Jamar Chase looked like if he could legally punch any media member and get away with it, he would do it. And he's not even mad at the media members. He's just that fed up. All right, there's reports coming out of players laughing and smiling in the locker room after that loss because they're all just frustrated and over it. There seems to be a clear divide between the Bengals offense and the Bengals defense, and rightfully so. Part of me wants to be disappointed in Jamar Chase because I'm not a fan of his comments. I'm not a fan of the this is a team game. It just doesn't seem like it's a very team locker room right now. It does seem like it's, well, everyone against the defense of the Bengals. Jamar Chase, and again, I don't know what you say, but the real leader of this team is Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco did a very good job diffusing it in the locker room afterwards. Jamar Chase did what he always does, and he makes it about himself. But if you're going to make it about yourself, at least go out there and perform well, and he did, so more power to him. But I just, the more things change, you get a Joe Burrow, a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You get a generational quarterback, all right, you get a generational talent at wide receiver, you get 2 number 1 wide receivers, and it's like, okay, they're trending in the right direction. Things are changing. They got to a Super Bowl. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Things started to slightly change. They were a team that was in the Super Bowl. It looked like their Super Bowl window was going to be open for quite some time. But then you realize the more things change, the more they stay the same because everyone likes to poke fun at the team I like, which is the Cleveland Browns. The Browns is the Browns. Well, I think it's officially time that we can break it out and start to say the Bengals or the Bungles is the Bungles. The Browns may be the Browns, but the Bungles is the Bungles. That was the most Bungles loss I have ever seen yesterday. And I'm done trying to play nice. I've spent the last couple of weeks saying I'm a big Joe Flacco fan. I'm going to try and pull for a feel-good story for him. Joe Flacco is doing absolutely everything that he can. At 40 years old, he's doing things that Joe Burrow can't, staying healthy, right? Even when he's banged up, he's still out there. He's toughing it out, and he's being a leader for his team, right? Like, that's what Joe Flacco's doing. I'm a big Joe Flacco fan, but outside of that, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. That's what this team is. They're going to put up a lot of points. The receivers are going to get involved. The defense is going to be the defense, and the Bengals are going to lose football games. Guys, Joe Burrow and the Bengals made it to a Super Bowl, and then they made it to an AFC championship game, all within a 2-year span. And we are going to go 3 straight years without this organization in the playoffs. That is unheard of. That is so hard for me to wrap my head around as far as how that's the case. The Cleveland Browns, with all their problems, they have a more recent playoff appearance than your Cincinnati Bengals. That's how bad it is in Cincinnati right now. I mean, I cracked this mic today not really knowing what I was going to say, and I think you guys are getting that vibe right now, but that was an absolute embarrassment yesterday. And if it wasn't for Joe Flacco and that offense, okay, if it wasn't for Joe Flacco and that offense, there wouldn't be a single reason to talk about this team, to go to Paycor Stadium and watch this team, to listen or watch this team. There's literally nothing about the Bengals organization that is worthy of being talked about outside of Joe Flacco, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, because it's all bad. And by the way, I saw the little the clip of Brown yesterday in the post game talking about calling out the defense. I'm going to go out on a limb here. All right, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think that Chase Brown should kind of be quiet. I don't think as Chase Brown, who's supposed to be the premier back for this team, who had 11 carries for 30 yards, I don't think Chase Brown, is allowed to sit there and tell the defense that they just need to make one play. How about you pick up 1 first down, Chase Brown? How about you, in an offense that is as explosive as it is, and you don't play a single role in it, how about you do something? I had a huge problem in the postgame yesterday with Chase Brown talking. As I said earlier, Jamar Chase, he wants to voice his frustrations. He wants to let people know that he's not happy. He gets paid $40 million a year. He's arguably the best wide receiver in football. And when they do win games, and the only reason they have a chance to win football games is because of him, he's allowed to be frustrated. Chase Brown, sit this one out, dude. Sit this one out. I mean, yesterday, Chase Brown, 11 carries for 37 freaking yards, no touchdowns. How your team put 42 points up on the board? Offense wasn't a problem. You had 37 yards on the ground. That's it. You played zero role in yesterday's game, but yet you're taking shots at the defense. If it wasn't for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you wouldn't get to sit there and puff your chest and act like you get a chance to talk about everybody else. I'm so over Chase Brown and they can't run the football. It's embarrassing. That's how good Jamar Chase is. That's why I've totally changed my tune on this dude. They are so freaking dominant, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, that this team still has chances to win with the worst defense in the NFL, one of the most embarrassing run games in football. The offensive line's not great. They've worked around it. Man, oh man. There's so much that you would like to feel good about what you saw yesterday, and instead it's just nothing but disgust. And I think Bengals fans, you have every right to be disgusted with your team. This shouldn't be you defending your team's honor against the Bengals hater Kinner. This should be you saying, you know what, Kinner, maybe you were right. After all these years, when it came to talking about our Cincinnati Bengals, maybe, just maybe, you were right. This is an embarrassment of an organization, because it is. Joe Burrow can't do anything about it. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins can't do anything about it. Chase Brown somehow thinks he's in position to do something about it, which is adorable. Give me a break. Give me a break. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show here on a Monday. All right, we are ranting right now. I was pissed off. That was a hell of a game. I love that game yesterday. I hate the finish. I'm mad because I was going for your Bengals. I want the Bengals to win. I want them to be a story, and I want them to be a story for the right reasons, not the reasons of which we're opening up the show today. And just like every other show that's Cincinnati Bengals centric, of course, they opened up the show with a lot of negativity as well, and there should be. Al Golden should be fired, not Zach Taylor. Maybe Zach Taylor should be fired for hiring Al Golden, but my goodness, Al Golden is a horrendous defensive coordinator. The Cincinnati Bengals are a horrendous defensive unit, and the Cincinnati Bengals are a horrendous organization. Let's get to it. 937-518-1410. What the heck happened yesterday? Why is it that the more things change, the more they stay the same? 937-518-1410. I see that AJ and Eric and Brandon are on hold. We're going to get to your calls on the other side. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers when we come back.
Today's forecast, 100% chance of overreactions, heated debates, and a slight drizzle of hope for Bengals fans. Sorry, guy with Burrow jersey. You're listening to the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Our forecast, mostly clear.
at Target. Restrictions apply.
Family might not understand why you're still mad about a 2019 play call. Well, we do. 1410 ESPN Radio, where you can argue about sports without worrying about getting uninvited to Thanksgiving.
All right, everybody, we welcome you back live here on a Monday, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. All right, good stuff. Look, the Bengals go down yesterday, 47-42. They gave up double-digit points in the second, third, and fourth quarter. They had a 10-7 lead after the first quarter. They had a 20-17 lead at halftime. And it was the Bears just absolutely just ripping the hearts out of all the Bengals fans at Paycor Stadium yesterday. We welcome you back again. I'm Justin Kinner with you here. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. You can call or text the hotline. We are also live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. And right now, everyone seems pretty fired up. Treg Raines, again, if you go to the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, you can jump in on the conversation there, and I'll interact with your comments in the chat. So Treg Raines messages into the show. Treg says, there needs to be a board to step in and override Mike Brown. If Taylor and Burrow wants to change the culture, let's start at the top. Not mad at Jamar at all. I'd be pretty pissed off as well. 35 plus points a game and losing. But that's the thing, Treg and Bengals fans, I'm not blaming you guys, but like, this is why when you guys were attacking me during the Super Bowl last year, because you guys, anything Joe Burrow does, you drool over. This is Joe Burrow's fault to a certain extent. And here's why. And it's not a hot take. It's nothing new. I've told you this before. When he went up and did his temper tantrum routine and cried and whined and just acted like a spoiled brat for a guy that hasn't accomplished anything, no individual awards, nothing, hasn't been to the playoffs in now going on 3 years, and he cried about he needs T. Higgins and needs Jamar Chase. And I get why he needs them, because look at what Joe Flacco at 40 years old is doing. But when you, as the quarterback, you know what you need. You need an offensive line. You need a run game. You need a defense. What you didn't need is $70 million a year being pumped into two players on a roster, wide receivers at that, on a roster that has so many holes. How is it that someone like me could see how bad that defense is, and I'm a 5'5", unathletic boob in Dayton, Ohio, but Joe Burrow, who is a quarterback savant, can't see that, hey, our defense is booty cheeks. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't feel bad for Joe Burrow. I don't feel bad. I do feel bad for Joe Flacco. All right. But, because Joe Flacco wouldn't be goofy enough to go and say, you know what? We won 9 games this year and lost a lot of games this year, and we missed the playoffs because our defense was bad. But I know I'm going to go on every national show possible, and I'm going to cry and complain because we need more wide receivers. He has a lot of power. Joe Burrow does. And this is his fault. This is what you wanted. Because even if Joe Burrow was healthy, this is what the season would be doing. I don't agree with anyone that says, man, if Joe Burrow was healthy, this season really went off the tracks when Joe Burrow went out. I disagree. Joe Flacco has just been absolutely phenomenal. He's been absolutely phenomenal. I don't get how at 40 years old he's able to do what he does. He's able to technically do what he does because of what Joe Burrow wanted, which was 2 number 1 wide receivers. That definitely helps. Zach Taylor, who everyone likes to bury, his play calling, his offense with those two, technically those two with any quarterback there, they're phenomenal. Don't turn the ball over on Zach Taylor's offense, and you'll be just fine. Because that's ultimately what cost Jake Browning his job. Jake Browning put up big numbers in Cincinnati, but he turned it over. Joe Burrow has limited turnovers. He puts up big numbers in Cincinnati. The offense is great. Jake Browning, when he wasn't turning it over, the offense was great. Joe Flacco, he doesn't turn it over. I know he had those interceptions yesterday. That one on a Hail Mary, scratch that one. He did throw that interception late, which almost cost him. You don't turn the ball over in Zach Taylor's system, you'll be just fine. That defense is horrendous. Someone has to hold somebody accountable. And at the end of the day, it does come down to, it's very simple. It's Al Golden. Al Golden should not have been hired to begin with. Al Golden, I should not be using time on my show to talk about firing Al Golden, because Al Golden should have never been hired to begin with. Cincinnati is on pace to have one of the worst defenses in NFL history at this point. Through 9 games, the Cincinnati Bengals are giving up 33 points per game. They are giving up a league-high 166 rushing yards per game. I can rush on this defense. I don't even need to put pads on because that's how much confidence I have that I'm not going to get freaking hit. In fact, when I do my live shows, when I take this show on the road in front of Bengals fans, I have a higher percent chance of getting hit by one of you than I do one of them sorry-ass defenders on the Bengals defense. The defense has given up to this point. They've given up a game of 27 points, 48 points, 28 points, 37 points, 31 points, 27 points, 39, and 47 over the last 2 weeks. They have actually gotten worse. They have gotten worse as the season has progressed. Worse. And I just don't get it. I mean, who would have thought that a linebackers coach would be this bad at a defensive coordinator who had shown, like, nobody wanted Al Golden. Nobody wanted Al Golden. I mean, I don't know why anyone could defend it. If your goal today is to bring up Zach Taylor, I can't get on board with that. It's the same rules as last week. Stop blaming Zach Taylor. Well, Zach Taylor, he's not just the offensive coordinator. He's the coach of the entire team. If Zach Taylor doesn't make the draft picks, Zach Taylor does not make the draft picks. Shaw tagged me in this on Twitter earlier today. So there's an account on X called Gridiron Grading. Okay, and they analyze each draft through the production and athleticism, and they use all of the Pro Football Focus metrics and all this stuff. Okay, there are 525 qualified defenders in Pro Football Focus's database through the first 9 weeks of this season. Okay. Now, the Bengals, their top 50 picks in Demetrius Knight Jr. and Shamar Stewart. Keep in mind, remember what I said. Of the qualified defenders in the Pro Football Focus database through the first 9 weeks of this season, there are 525 of those players. Guess where Demetrius Knight and Shamar Stewart, where do you think that they rank amongst those 525 qualified defenders in the Pro Football Focus database? The reason I bring up Demetrius Knight Jr. and Shamar Stewart is because I battled a lot of you Bengals fans around the draft telling me how great of picks those were. Shamar Stewart, I know he doesn't have any production, but he looks like Myles Garrett. Well, he's going to be at home with you and I watching Myles Garrett more because he's nothing like Myles Garrett. He's nothing like Myles Garrett. Guys, Demetrius Knight Jr. and Shamar Stewart, they are graded 523rd and 524th as run defenders in the NFL out of 525 qualified defenders in the league. They are 2 of the absolute worst defenders in the entire league. And these were guys that the Bengals reached on in the draft. This was a draft that was supposed to be so important because they had to hit on this draft. They had to get that train back on the tracks. And you see stuff like this, and you see stuff like yesterday. When you rely on rookies, obviously, that's a dangerous road to go down. Cleveland tried relying on rookies a lot this year, but it's kind of worked. Now, it helps that they have a Myles Garrett, yes. But the fact that they go get, obviously, a Mason Graham, who has been phenomenal, a Schlesinger, who has been phenomenal. Okay, and I'm not just talking offense or defense. I'm talking as a whole. You look at Quinshawn Judkins, who has been fantastic. Harold Fannin Jr. And I'm not doing the Browns are better than the Bengals shtick. I'm just saying the Browns went a dangerous route as well. I wasn't a big fan of trying to plug a lot of those holes with all rookies. But if it wasn't for the Browns' most recent draft pick, they would be even a million times worse than what they already are. If you're going to rebuild, and I don't think the Bengals want to rebuild, they just want to reload. If you're going to reload, it starts in the draft. And they cannot draft. They cannot develop. They cannot figure out defense. They cannot figure out an offensive line. They don't know how to run the damn football. It has been an absolute train wreck. And I'm done trying to be nice. If you've noticed over the last month, I said, I'm going to approach the Bengals a little different. It helps that they have a quarterback I actually like now in Joe Flacco. But after what I saw yesterday was just an organizational failure. It wasn't just defense. It was an organizational failure from the top down because the loss yesterday and the loss last week and the losses this season, Those losses had started to be accumulated in recent years in their failures to draft and develop talent, and their failures in their decision-making. Say what you want about Zach Taylor, but he brings something to the table. Al Golden doesn't. Duke Tobin doesn't. Mike Brown doesn't. Offensive line coach doesn't. Running backs coach doesn't. Nobody has any value in that organization. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Now, you could sit there and say Zach Taylor doesn't bring value. I'm sorry, but he has a 40-year-old quarterback that is literally with one arm putting his team on the shoulders in his offense. You can't sit there and tell me that just anybody can go do that. I watched Joe Flacco fail in Cleveland and Kevin Stefanski's offense. You can't sit there and tell me that, no, it's the quarterback bailing out Zach Taylor once again. It's the offense. It's Zach Taylor. He brings value, but that's it. It's Zach Taylor. It's Jamar Chase. It's T. Higgins and Joe Burrow. Those are the only valuable pieces. And Flacco, obviously, as a backup. 5 valuable pieces when you have organizationally hundreds of people involved. That is absolutely embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Let's go to the phones. 937-518-1410. AJ, sorry, I ranted more than I meant to. You're on live, sir.
Justin, hey, I want to congratulate you. It sounds like the production budget has increased with these rejoins.
Oh yeah, we're the creative genes are flowing now. It's just all coming together. But yeah, I'll pass it along to my bosses that their efforts are being noticed.
Yeah. Hey, yesterday when the Bears got the ball back, I knew it was over.
I know when they scored, I was like, oh damn. That's a lot of time left, and it's not a lot of time, but that's a lot of time against that defense. Yeah.
I was never a proponent to get rid of Lou Anarumo, and I'm sure that he is just sitting back on his couch and then just thinking, it's not sunnier on the other side. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Watched Al Golden, come up with the Irish, and I was never impressed with him anyway. And I always thought it was a bad hire, but yeah, defense is just atrocious, man. I can't argue with you.
And that's the thing too. And now Golden, here's the bottom line. He's going to get beat up because that's his title, as the DC. And it's not like I really knew who Al Golden was a whole heck of a lot before this, of course. So that's unfair to say, I knew he was going to be bad, but the red flags were there from the very beginning when the Bengals, who were moving on from Lou Anarumo, there was no tug of war to get Al Golden. It was only one team after him, one team. And the fact that there were so many teams that had needs a defensive coordinator last year, and yet the Bengals were the only one trying to acquire his services, that was a red flag to me because they're the path of least resistance. And the fact that nobody else was trying to acquire him, that was a red flag at the end of the day, in my eyes.
Yeah. As much as I hate to say this, guy gets on my nerves so much, but Steve from Springboro is so right that this is a peewee. My son's 4th grade football team tackles better than the Bengals do.
I mean, do you realize how bad things have just gotten? That Steve from Springboro, my guy, by the way. Okay, he's my guy. I'm not taking shots at Steve. I love Steve. But Bengals fans are so fed up that they are agreeing with Steve from Springboro. That's how bad things have gotten in the old that's bad over there in old Cincy. Oof. Oofa.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not good. Not good, Bob.
We know that the Bengals are stubborn. There's no changes coming anytime soon, but what adjustments, what do you do at the bye week here? You have to do something different coming out. And you're going to get a lot of the same cookie cutter responses from Zach Taylor. We got to be better and blah, 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 the huge. I don't know where they go from here because there's not a move at the deadline that they can make.
Here's what I'll tell you. Tomorrow is the trade deadline, and that's the only move that they can make.
And it's not to get better. It's just to start to position themselves for the draft, right? That's a Trey Hendrickson move, I'm assuming, right?
And possibly T.
You think you were the one that called last week about that? I don't know if they go that route, but if they were smart, let's put it this way: what you saw yesterday from T. Higgins, I mean, the guy's unbelievable. That was just that's an embarrassment of riches to have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But it's like you can turn things around quickly if you move on. But then again, you could. This was the argument that I got into a lot with my guys over at Chatterbox about. Okay, you keep moving on from guys. You trade T to get more draft picks. You trade Henderson to get draft picks, but you got to actually hit on the draft, and that's just something. That's the other scary part. It's you're going to get all these draft picks, but I have no faith that organization is going to do the right things with them.
I would agree with you. Again, that goes back to my previous comment last week about Duke Tobin, but you got to get value where you can get it. I mean, what are we going to do? Keep all these receivers and overpay on offense and then not be able to pick up what we need on defense? The problem is defense. They shouldn't be scoring 40 plus points a game and losing. Any other team in the NFL, if you're scoring 35 plus points a game, that's usually a win.
It should be. And 9 times out of 10 should be, no doubt.
The value and it's no, I'm not dogging on T. T's a great player. I love him. He's a fundamental piece of this team, but he's going to get he has the most value as an asset for the Bengals.
Because you look at Jamar Chase getting paid $40 million. You look at a lot of these top paid wide receivers in football right now. I mean, T. Higgins at a little south of $35 million has that's a ton of value right there.
He's cheap for a number one receiver.
Yeah, very. 7 catches, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns yesterday, and some of those grabs were just unbelievable. It's disappointing. And look, for everyone out there that thinks I'm enjoying this, I'm not. The Bengals are. I think they just killed the fan base yesterday. I feel like this is lower? Is this the lowest you guys have felt in the Joe Burrow era?
I would say it is, and I feel like out of all the teams, the one Super Bowl run that the Bengals have built up so much equity that it's almost unfair. No one else gets any, like all these other quarterbacks out here that, might have a hot run and, do well. After 1 or 2 years of them not performing, they get a lot of heat. The Bengals and Joe Burrow are not getting that heat that I honestly think would be well-deserved.
Yeah, and I'm getting heat right now, speaking of heat, about what the hell does Joe Burrow have to do with this? Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have brought up the Burrow thing. I just always go back to that Super Bowl, media road thing when I was like disagreeing with him wholeheartedly that they need defense, not more wide receivers. However, he's just never, they're constantly in this position too because he's just always hurt. And they're always having to overcome something. And this organization is just not built to have to overcome things constantly, which is what made it made that Super Bowl run so impressive because they had to overcome that offensive line. I mean, him, second-year quarterback getting sacked 70 times and to overcome that and get to a Super Bowl. I mean, that was good stuff. And I think why Bengals fans fell in love that year is because we felt like they were turning the corner and the resiliency factor was kicking in, that they were going to be a unit that could overcome stuff. They can't overcome stuff anymore. They just can't. And there's too much to overcome. I think that's the other problem.
Oh, yeah, I'm starting to realize that season was an outlier.
Yeah, it very well could be. It very well could be. But, hey, AJ, I appreciate you waiting on hold. I appreciate your takes.
Hey, Justin.
937-518-1410. I'm Justin Kinner with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. 937-518. Let's see. I don't know that no names popping up on that. I'll have to get to you guys coming up during the commercial break. But we got a Steve from Springboro shout out. Basically say he agrees. People are starting to agree with Steve from Springboro on his takes about the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's how bad it's getting. Adam Seldner on Facebook says, if I were a Bengals fan, I'd be pointing the finger at ownership. They control so much good and bad that happens with the team that blaming coaches or players are cover-ups to their faults with the team. I would agree. But watching the broadcast yesterday, how many times did they call out? I mean, did you guys notice how many times the defensive scheme was being put on blast yesterday? It wasn't just the mistakes from the players. I mean, they were literally highlighting some of the scheme, mistakes that they were making as far as just the overall setup. This team, they can't tackle. They're not set up in the right spots. they're not even running the proper defense again in certain situations throughout the game. And it was being called out during the broadcast yesterday. Like, it's one thing if you have a team that just, from a, skill set standpoint isn't very good, but I think that the coaching skill set, the lack of, if you will, was put on display yesterday from the defensive side. That's rough, nonetheless. Gary Peck says it is looking like they needed Chase and Higgins, but not Joe Burrow. Flacco is doing what Burrow does, but for a lot less. Look, that door will be opened at some point, but I'm not going to open that door. I'm not going to go down that road. Gary, I always love a good opportunity to twist the knife, if you will. I'm not going to go that route. I don't think it's a great look for Joe Burrow that his production's so easily replaceable. All right, his production, I know you guys are going to think about those couple of games against Minnesota and Denver and say, okay, see, his production's not easily replaceable, but there are way more games without Joe Burrow where this offense hums. Okay? 2 years ago when he was out and Jake Browning took over, the offense, they've still finished above 500. They finished the season with 9 wins with Jake Browning. They won a lot of games with Jake Browning. They put up a lot of points with Jake Browning. They lost games because of defense. And then you get Joe Burrow back, and they put up a lot of points, yes, but they lost games because of defense. And then this year, pretty much the entire season without Joe Burrow, they're putting up a lot of points, and they're losing games because of defense. Joe Burrow's production, Joe Flacco's not Joe Burrow, okay? Joe Burrow's an elite quarterback. But, man, so is Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and others, and when those cats are out, their teams disappear. And you're going to say, well, the Bengals, how have they not disappeared? They've lost all but one game since his departure. Yeah, but not because of offense. Joe Flacco was unbelievable yesterday. Unbelievable. He threw the ball 47 times. He has one arm right now. He threw the ball 47 times. He completed 31 of those. He threw 4 touchdowns. I mean, Joe Flacco, what he's doing at this age is just unbelievable. And by the way, he did all of that with no run game. He did all of that with no defense yesterday. And Chase Brown, who I know he was big yesterday in the pass game. He had 8 catches for 75 yards. But Chase Brown, here's the deal, dude. You're a running back, and we need you to start producing as a running back because 11 carries for 37 yards just ain't it. But Joe Flacco, man, good for him. That was an unbelievable performance yesterday, and finding ways to get it done. They only have a shot to win these games because of Flacco. Everything you said last year about Joe Burrow, you have to say about Joe Flacco because the guy is getting it done. The defense isn't, though. The defense isn't. I'm Justin Kinner, Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. The calls, some of those dropped. Call back. I'll get your spot back in line. We'll get to your calls when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Where do the Bengals go from here? I feel like there's been a lot of these moments. I mean, you think about, last year, the loss against the Chargers. You think of the losses against the Ravens. I think of that loss last week against the Jets. Is this the lowest that this fan base has been in the Joe Burrow era? Is this the lowest you've ever felt? Was yesterday the final straw? 937-518-1410. We'll be right back.
Today's show is brought to you by False Hope Energy Drink. One sip, and suddenly you believe this is the year the Bengals get an offensive line, maybe even a defense. Warning, may cause midseason meltdowns and off-season excuses. The Justin Kinner Show, powered by pure, unfiltered sarcasm. And, oh yeah, False Hope Energy Drink.
Food for the workplace. It's a beautiful thing. It brings teams together.
741 North Kimmel Road in Clayton, or online at mybathcreations.com and get a new bath today.
Thank you for calling the Browns Emotional Support Line. Press 1 if you're blaming the refs. Press 2 if you're blaming the quarterback. Press 3 if you're blaming the head coach. Don't worry, we've got you. 1410 Wing AM, the only station where it's safe to scream into your radio.
I don't know how many of you are actually screaming at your radio, but appreciate that you are tuning in to us live here on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. 937-518-1410, the number to call and jump in on the conversation. So we are live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, whether you call into the show or interact in the chat. I appreciate you regardless. So a couple things coming in. Ann Anderson. Ann, I hope you're doing well. Ann Anderson says, how can you score 42 points and lose? Hell, at 75 years old, I think I could play better defense. And then there is my Broncos. Yes, Ann Anderson enjoying her Denver Broncos, of course, this season. But Ann, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the message. Chad Kinzer says Al Golden should have been fired before Taylor even had his post-game conference. Well, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. In fact, Paul Dehner Jr., couple notes coming from the media availability earlier today. Zach Taylor, this is according to Paul Dehner Jr. and just the conversation that he and the rest of the media had earlier today. Zach Taylor says that there are no staff changes coming on defense. He says that, well, Al Golden is working like crazy. And you Bengals fans need to trust in him and trust in the staff, according to Zach Taylor earlier today. I always laugh. I think these conferences are pointless. Everyone's like, I can't believe he said that. Well, what is he going to say? He's not going to say Al Golden is cheeks. Okay. He has to say this. He has to say this. So I don't have a problem with it. I roll my eyes at it, but what else is Zach Taylor supposed to say? So there's that. Paul Dehner Jr. also addressed the Trey Hendrickson stuff, and we're going to get into Trey Hendrickson coming up in a moment. Have you seen the last of Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati? I think you possibly have. I think there was a lot to be made during the pregame coverage heading into the Bengals game yesterday. Trey Hendrickson is made available. What the Bengals are asking for him is still pretty high, according to a lot of teams out there. There was a trade for a pass rusher earlier today that was involved the Eagles, and the Eagles have been linked to Trey Hendrickson. So it sounds like that's not going to happen now, but we'll get to that more coming up. In a moment. Brian, I hope you're well. Brian Weaver says, don't forget that our offensive line is still horrible, which is another reason to praise Flacco. Yes, we were talking a little bit ago about, Joe Burrow. When we see Joe Burrow do some of the things he does, despite the no offensive line, despite the bad defense and no run game, it's pretty amazing watching a guy do what he does. But it kind of loses its shine a little when somebody that's almost twice his age, who we deemed geriatric and dumb, not dumb, I'm sorry, done. I did say dumb. I like Joe Flacco. I didn't mean dumb. My bad. I don't know why. Maybe I'm dumb, and you all are agreeing with me. Probably the first time you've agreed with me on this show today. But we all thought that Joe Flacco was geriatric and done. And for him to go take over this offense with that bad offensive line, with their inability to run the football, and think about how gassed he has to be, by the way. That defense, they give up points in a hurry, right? Like they give up points in a hurry. It's not like, oh man, that defense gets that offense off the field and has to it's that offense is constantly out there because that defense they give up points so quick. It's a fast break every single time. I feel like we're watching a basketball game. When you watch Bengals football, it's like watching a basketball game. It's a fast break, fast-paced game the entire time. I think what Joe Flacco is doing is more impressive than anything Burrow does, mainly because of the fact that Joe Flacco is 40 and can barely move. Chad on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page says the only way that Duke Tobin should even be close to keeping his job is if he were to fire Al Golden and bring Marvin Lewis back, put Lewis in charge of defense and player personnel. I don't think that's that crazy of an idea. I don't know what Marvin Lewis is up to these days. I think Marvin Lewis as the defensive coordinator would provide some kind of spark and personality for this team. And I actually think it would work. I don't know if Marvin Lewis has any aspirations to be a head coach again to begin with. Not saying he doesn't. I don't know. but anything could be better than Al Golden. But the thing is, no matter who the next defensive coordinator is, and by the way, I'm saying that as if it's going to happen, whether it is Al Golden moving forward or it's somebody new, they have to make changes as far as the personnel on the field, because that's the only way things are going to get better. Treg says that the Treg's annoyed in the chat, by the way. Shout out to Treg Reigns. Okay. He is annoyed in the chat with all of the Joe Burrow slander. And it's not just from me. It used to just be me saying weird things about Joe Burrow. I'm actually surprised at how many people are calling into the show about it and leaving their thoughts in the chat about this. Treg is kind of fed up. He says that the Burrow blame here is wild, LOL. Saying he whined to keep 2 number ones is crazy. He goes on to say that's like saying any offense that is good will have a bad defense because they chose to be a dominant defense, which is preposterous. People just need to do their job. Golden was hired and Tobin was hired to do a job that they are just not doing, period. All right, Treg, I'm going to meet you halfway here. I agree with you. The Cincinnati Bengals should have been able to pay Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow and still draft a somewhat functional defense. I can meet you, Treg, halfway there. I agree with you. But because we know that they can't draft a functional defense, that's what made it even more important for the Bengals to not pay T. Higgins and to put that money on defense in free agency. I don't trust that the Bengals could draft and develop, which means they need to go and get legitimate free agents, not Geno freaking Stone. They have to go get legitimate playmakers because the Bengals can do it. We watched them do it. You remember when they got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? You remember when they went out and they were getting the DJ Readers and they were getting the Trey Hendricksons and they were getting the Mike Hiltons and they were getting like legit talent? I mean, when they wanted to, they were willing to go out and do it. They don't seem willing to do it anymore. And that's the problem. So, Treg, I agree with you. Yes, they should be able to pay Jamar and T and Joe and still be able to have good players on defense. But because we know they're inability, they do not have the capability of drafting and developing anymore. That's why T. Higgins was not necessary. That's why T. Higgins did not need to come back, and that $35 million a year needed to be distributed between a linebacker or two, or a cornerback or two, or a pass rusher. So that's where I'm at. And not every situation, when people bring up the Eagles, well, the Eagles could do it. Well, the Eagles they have people with brains in the front office. The Bengals don't. They have to think smarter, not harder. And they think a lot, but it doesn't get them anywhere. It doesn't get them anywhere. So, Treg, that's where I disagree with you. I mean, I want to agree with you because from a concept-wise, yes, the Eagles have figured it out. The Lions have figured it out. But the Niners have figured it out. But what do the Lions and the Niners and the Eagles all have in common? They can all draft and develop. The Bengals can't. So if you can draft confidently and develop at a high rate and have, good young players that you don't have to pay right now, you could pull it off. They can't pull it off. They can't pull it off. So that's where I'm at with that. All right. Wow. Look at that. Hour 1 in the books. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Here's the deal. Tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow is, and yes, Treg, they all have better ownership. That's the thing. Yes. I think we're both saying the same thing. I'm just saying it's because they don't have that side covered. That's why it was not smart to do the T. Higgins deal. But it's fun to watch them. Yesterday's game, if you're not a Bengals fan, I don't know how you can't have fun watching the Bengals. They're fun every week. Every week, I feel like the Bengals make me say, I can't believe that just happened. The sad thing is we're going to get to a point where, I can believe it just happened. And maybe for some of you, that was the case yesterday. Okay, good stuff. 937-518-1410. If you want to call into the show, that's the number. Hour 2 coming up next. The trade deadline is tomorrow. Trey Hendrickson, will you ever see him play another snap in Cincinnati? We'll discuss when we come back. Hour 2 coming up next.
and the occasional tears. The Justin Kinner Show, your official cardiac clinic for the Bengals.
Paul Dehner Jr. tweeted this out about an hour ago. He said he spoke with Trey Hendrickson, and he asked Trey Hendrickson if he has any expectations of what will happen at the trade deadline tomorrow. Trey Hendrickson said, and quoted here, that he wasn't feeling or looking for much control over what's next. I think he kind of learned his lesson, and that's basically what he said in this quote, saying, I think that this offseason I had a million different scenarios that could have happened. The only one that happens is the one that they approve. It's kind of out of my hands, and I'll just trust in the Lord through this process. Whatever he has in store, it will be done. Yeah, because I'm sure that the good Lord above and Mike Brown are working very close to make this happen. I think even the good Lord above, all right, is like, yeah, I'm responsible for everything on this earth, but that Mike Brown fella, I don't know really why he operates the way he does. I don't even think the good old Lord above knows how to control old Mike Brown. So that's the concern there. The one thing too, Trey Hendrickson, who is battling a little bit of a back issue. Okay, and this stems back to that Jets game. Hendrickson said also that he absolutely took an issue with the hit in the back that he took from the Jets offensive lineman John Simpson that set back his injury. The injury report said that he re-aggravated the hip. That's public information. Landing there was unfortunate. That's 2 games I did not see my opponent. That's also new. Taking shots in the back is not something I typically enjoy. Very new, unfortunate. Look, the bottom line is I don't know how injured Trey Hendrickson is. I don't think the Bengals, I do wonder if the Bengals are still very much so in this. I almost wonder if he plays yesterday. And if you're saying, well, are you saying you don't trust the injury report? It's exactly what I'm saying. I don't trust, for one, with all the stuff going on in all these leagues and everything. I don't trust any of the stuff that's put out there. I don't care. I just don't. I don't trust that Trey Hendrickson is as banged up as what they say. The Bengals don't want to put Trey Hendrickson out there and risk him getting hurt and lessening his trade value. And Trey Hendrickson doesn't want to get seriously injured before heading into the trade deadline. And I actually think that this technically doesn't help. I think it might scare some teams away. Earlier today, it was announced the day started with the big trade over in the NFL when the Eagles, they landed Jalen Phillips in a trade with the Dolphins. The Eagles added another top player to their defense ahead of the trade deadline, acquiring outside linebacker Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins. Now, Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel confirmed on Monday afternoon that Phillips had been traded. The Dolphins will receive a 2026 third-round draft pick in the deal. And that's kind of where we're at. Now, Phillips has 3 sacks in 9 games this season. I think that's his 26th in his 5-year career with the Dolphins. He's a 2021 first-round pick. And he's scheduled to become a free agent after this season, very similar to the likes of course, Trey Hendrickson. Now, the Eagles have been busy, right? There were links yesterday. There was talks yesterday. The Eagles have been linked to a lot. As a Browns fan, there was a lot of talk this week, or I should say last week, Sports Talk Radio in Cleveland, because it had been reported that the Eagles were willing to give up at the very least 3 first-round draft picks to acquire Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. Now, that's without hearing that from Adam Schefter or whatever, but there was enough smoke that led to their people believing there was almost a fire to be able to talk about it. And then you see that the Eagles, who are, then they were linked to Trey Hendrickson, that they had been in talks with the Bengals yesterday. Obviously, the Bengals and their typical stubborn selves, they can't get out of their own way. And the Eagles send a 3rd round pick to Miami. Now, a 3rd round pick, obviously, you would like something more than that for Trey Hendrickson, but it's just the point that how aggressive are the Bengals trying to be here? I think too aggressive is the key, but not aggressive to move them. They just want as big a return as possible, as they should, but they're not going to be able to get out of their own way. Sometimes they lack a little self-awareness. the Eagles want Trey Hendrickson, but if this back injury is what they say, then, maybe that knocks it down a bit. So maybe faking the injury, if that's what they're doing, allegedly, who knows? But the Eagles have been busy, okay? Because they also acquired Jair Alexander in a separate trade last week to help bolster the defense. And they also they landed Michael Carter II, another cornerback. And then, of course, they just got Jalen Phillips here. The Eagles are positioning themselves for a second half run. So that was a good move for them. Will the Bengals move on from Trey Hendrickson? We talked about this last week. I said that they should. They should. You have the worst defense in the NFL with Trey Hendrickson. You can continue to have the worst defense in the NFL without him. He's not going to help. You could say, well, maybe he would have been a difference maker yesterday. Maybe not. But the Bengals have lost a lot of these one possession shootout games with him on the field. And I'm not saying and it's not all on him. I'm just saying, like, they're not a Trey Hendrickson away. If anyone thinks that they're a Trey Hendrickson away from beating the Jets or what we saw yesterday, that's just not accurate. And I think that when you have as many holes as that they need to fill as they do, I think not moving on from him is reckless. I really do. 937-518-1410. Roger, you are on live, sir. Thanks for holding.
Me?
Hey, Roger, you're on live, sir. How are you?
I'm just fine. Little history. I went to the Bengals Freezer Bowl in 81
Oh, yeah?
or 82. Yeah. I was at the Pittsburgh game when Perfect intercepted the ball with 1:25 left to go on the Pittsburgh 25-yard line, and they ran the ball and fumbled it on the first play.
Yep.
I've seen enough Bengal debacles over the years, but this defense is probably the worst of the worst. I went to yesterday's game, and I tell my wife all the time, hey, the Bengals can still come back and win this. The Bengals can still come back and win this. And she's telling me, what do you watch that shit for? Well, sorry about that. Anyway, I'm at the game yesterday. 2 minutes left to go. They throw the interception. I tell my daughter, let's get out of here. I missed the 2 touchdowns that take him in the lead, and I missed the touchdown that lost it. And if they would have won the game, I would have really felt bad. But the fact that they blew it the way they did, I'm glad I left.
And you're not surprised.
I'm not surprised. I told the guy sitting next to me when the Jets scored the touchdown to take the lead 17-13 or whatever it was.
Yep.
I said, you watch, the Bengals lose this game. They'll score 40 points and lose. I had no idea they'd actually do it, but I told him that in the second quarter, and they scored 40 points and lost. So, yeah, defense. Listen, aren't all these players 350 or 320 pounds or muscles? Aren't they all physically pretty close to being equal?
You would think that you would think the fact that you could find big time athletes like this that all collectively can't physically tackle somebody, that's just strange to me. That it's like you almost have to try to be that bad.
So it's coaching, and obviously they don't have anything on that side of the ball.
It's bad.
So they need to get rid of that guy. Yep. Should have never hired him. I agree with everything you said about it.
Do you think should they trade Hendrickson?
No.
They
should keep Hendrickson. They should get Hendrickson's got another 2 or 3 good years in it. They always trade people that they can't quite keep to save a few years. They go someplace else and win a Super Bowl with the team. Look, Joe Burrow is such a good quarterback. He can make any receiver look good. I agree Jamar Chase is something special. T. Higgins is something special too. But you don't need them both. They have a rookie. His name, help me out here, Tingley or something like that.
Yep, the guy. Yes,
he made a hell of a catch. One catch he threw to him. I'm saying that he can replace Higgins or Chase. Find somebody who needs a wide receiver, trade him for a few first-round draft picks, and get rid of your defense. All Burrow needs is a halfway decent defense. He can make any receiver look good.
That's the hope. That's the hope. And I think they were hoping to just have an average defense, and this is a little slightly less than below. That's for sure.
Yeah, listen.
Yep. Not good.
I moved to Arizona, and I fly back once a year to see a Bengals game with my daughter. We saw them lose to New England the first part of the season a couple years ago. We saw them lose to Washington last year. And this year, you know, my daughter hadn't seen him win a game yet. And
Really?
I'm spending all this money I'm spending money to fly back here to, you know, well, let's pick a game out they can win this year. Yeah, they ought to be able to beat the Bears. Yeah. So here I am.
Well,
I'm still
you're
in
a good.
Ohio. I'm still in Ohio. Let's go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you're a good dad at least. You got that going for you, so you're good. You're good.
Yeah, I understand. Well, have a good day.
You too, sir. Appreciate you. 937-518-1410. Shaw, mind your business. Ron, how is it that, like, in the two people that caught what he said? Look at Ron Howard right away responds. David Shaw, the two that have cursed the most on this show that I've had to put in. Me and Kev had to literally suspend Shaw from the show. He wasn't allowed to call in for 3 months because he couldn't control his language on the show. What the hell is that about? Come on now. Good stuff. Johnson Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. The Dayton Weight Loss Secret Program has successfully helped thousands of people, including myself, lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. Schedule your free consultation in person or virtually by calling 937-999-1480 or online at DaytonWeightLossSecret.com. More of the Justin Kinner Show when we come back. college basketball season is officially here. How about that? The season tips off tonight. Ohio State will welcome in IU Indianapolis out of the Horizon League. That'll be a 6:30 kickoff or tip-off. Sorry, still have football in the brain. Wright State, we'll have that for you on 101.5 The Fridge coming up later on tonight. That's a 7 o'clock tip-off. We'll welcome in Franklin for another 7 o'clock tip-off, as I mentioned. So Ohio State, IU Indy, that'll be 6:30. Wright State has Franklin tonight. That's a 7 o'clock tip-off. And the Dayton Flyers will be in action tonight as well. They have Canisius coming in for a 7 o'clock tip-off at UD Arena. Dayton, a 25.5-point favorite. Don't tell some players on the team the spread. I mean, I'd be a little concerned about that. But, I'm just saying, what? Can't have fun with that? What? I mean, what's going on with that? By the way, I do want to know when the findings of that's going to come out. Because in the meantime, let's just say that the kid did do it. Now you just have a dude that throws games just sitting on your sideline this whole time. Not a good look, but nonetheless. But college basketball season officially here, of course, and college basketball tipping off right as we're getting into the heat of it, in the middle of it with college football and the NFL. The NFL, we're officially at the trade deadline tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day. Tomorrow, here at the trade deadline. Tomorrow also will be the release of the very first college football playoff rankings for the 2025 season. Trade deadline impacts the NFL. Rankings, obviously, college football. College basketball tipping off here tonight. And, and that's the thing with college basketball. I don't think you're going to learn a whole heck of a lot about any of your teams tonight. But, for Raider fans who are at the Nutter Center, for Flyer fans who are at UD Arena, Ohio State fans, year two in the Jake Diebler era over there, it's just a chance to see your team on the floor for the first time. And we know the high turnover rates when it comes to these teams, when it comes to the roster. It's just a chance to get to experience, to get your first taste of what these rosters and teams are going to look like. But the season's officially here, no doubt about it. So tomorrow I picked a bad time to be off, but I'm out. There's no show tomorrow. It's a travel day. I'm with Wright State on the road. We're heading to California tomorrow. They play California on Thursday night. Okay, Thursday night at 10 o'clock. It'll be a late one, but they'll be right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. So that's coming up this Thursday night. Again, Wright State and California out of the ACC. And then we'll have Ohio State that night in action as well. That'll be game one of that doubleheader. So we'll just keep that in mind. We have a lot of college basketball moving forward, on top of the fact that, you're going to have Ohio State basketball and football overlapping throughout the season. Nonetheless. But yes, this Thursday, Ohio State will play Purdue-Fort Wayne. That's a 6:30 tip-off. And then right after that game will be Wright State at California. So that's coming up later on this week. I want to talk college football. We'll step away. We're going to pause for just a few seconds, but when we come back, we are going to dive right into the Ohio State's win over Penn State. It was the final audition, if you will, for a lot of teams before the rankings come out tomorrow. What can you expect? We're going to get into all of that coming up here around the corner. But just a reminder again, Dayton opening up with Canisius tonight. Wright State has Franklin, and Ohio State with IU Indy. College basketball officially tips off. But we'll be right back. Again, we'll switch gears from college basketball to college football. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
This segment of Flyers Talk is presented by Crosstown Avoidance Insurance. Protects against the risk of Wright State looking like a rival you actually play.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was
All right, and we are back. I'm Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM, 937-518-1410. So ESPN's Ben Baby tweets out that Bengals head coach Zach Taylor, he took exception to the comments made in the postgame from running back Chase Brown regarding the finishing of the game and the defense. Said he doesn't expect that type of reaction to happen again. Good for Zach Taylor. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like I've seen a lot of people make something about this. Like, I work in media. I should take media side. But I also find us to be very invasive. I don't feel like if I got to put myself in an athlete's shoes, and I know you're saying you're 5'7" and, overweight. Like you're not an athlete. No, I'm not. As wild as that sounds, I'm not. I have to put myself in these players' shoes. Think about the way that they lost. And you have a bunch of unathletic dweebs who are jealous of your career, who are not going to, I mean, some of them are just fanboy media. Some of the bloggers that are, in the post game in Cincinnati, they care more about being friends with the players than they actually do about providing real media coverage, but that's besides the point. What ends up happening is you're going to ask really dumb questions. Hey, you just lost in super dramatic fashion. How you feel? My least favorite media question of all time. How you feel, right? And then you're going to get a really crappy response. Okay. And then when the athlete gives a crappy response, we're going to get mad at them. So I want to defend Chase Brown a little bit here and say he gave a heated, passionate response because that's what happens after a game. I don't know if I could do what they do where I just speak calmly more times than not. That's what makes Joe Flacco such an unbelievable leader. I find him to be phenomenal. Joe Flacco, like the way he handles himself and carries himself in the post game, I give him a lot of credit. Chase Brown, though, the reason I'm not going to be patient with the Chase Brown is because you're a nobody and you don't contribute to this team. And I don't care that he had 70 yards receiving, whatever. The Bengals have pass catchers. They need running backs. Be a running back. Okay. And he 11 carries for 30-something yards yesterday. Just an absolute abysmal effort on his end when it comes to that. When you are Chase Brown, when you don't produce almost every other week, it seems, you don't get to call out the defense. If you're Chase Brown, sit this one out. I wasn't a big fan of Jamar Chase's comments in the postgame either, but it's Jamar Chase. I feel like there are just a handful of players that are allowed to maybe be critical of other players or sides of the ball in that locker room. Joe Burrow, when he plays, whenever that is, when Joe Burrow's healthy and he's playing and he's giving it his all, I think he has the right to maybe be a little critical of the way that the other side of the ball fails to get it done. I'm fine with that. Jamar Chase and even the soft-spoken T. Higgins, who never says anything. But I feel like on a team with so many flaws, if you're not Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, I don't think you're allowed to comment. I don't think you're allowed to talk. I have a huge problem with Chase Brown. I think he is very overrated. I don't think he brings much to the table at all. I think his production could be replaced with an actual good running back. I don't care that he can make plays in the pass game. They have pass catchers. They need him to be a running back. And the fact that he went off the way he did about the defense, if I'm a defender in that locker room, we all know we stink, but I know you're not very good at what you do either. And that's going to be kept in the memory bank. And I'm pretty sure the next time he has a bad game or a major turnover, Chase Brown also, they're lucky that they had a chance to even win that game. If you remember, he had the ball wide open in his hands. He didn't talk about that. We just needed one stop. Well, they maybe needed your catch. There's just a lot of things that I have a problem with as far as that goes. But it is what it is. Zach Taylor said you're not going to have those type of reactions moving forward. I disagree with him. Mainly because of the fact that the Bengals are going to keep losing games like that moving forward. They have a bye week. I don't know what the line is for them coming out of the bye week, but we all know that they have the Steelers who, dang it, Kev Nash's Steelers, of course, just had to go and get the win over the Colts. I was really like the only way that could have softened that blow, the way the Bengals lost yesterday, would have been for the Steelers to lose against the Colts. But when you have the Steelers and the Ravens both win that week and you lose that way when you had the game in your hands, you've had the game in your hands the last 2 weeks and you let it slip through. That's a tough pill to swallow, Bengals fans. You're 3-6. You should be 5-4. You should be right there at the top of the division with the Steelers, technically ahead of them because of the fact that, you hold a win over them. But now you're looking up, and soon you're going to be looking up at two teams because the Ravens might have figured something. We'll see if, they're just a product of playing a very bad dysfunctional Dolphins team or if they have what it takes to start going on a run. We know Lamar Jackson's good enough for them to go on a run, but is that team good enough for them to go on a run? That's going to be the big question mark. But the Ravens next week, I'm trying to pull up who they have. So they are at the Vikings. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson and company, 1 o'clock to kickoff this Sunday. They are at Minnesota, and they are a 3.5-point favorite. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I get that everyone, is super emotional after what happened yesterday. But Chase Brown, you don't have the clout in that locker room to get to point at somebody else when they don't do their job. Because more weeks than not, you're not doing yours. And as far as I'm concerned, and you could bring up the total yards aspect, you could bring up the fact that he had, 70-something yards through the air yesterday. That's fantastic. I need you to be a running back, dude. And carrying the ball 11 times for 30-something yards, that's not going to get it done. And it didn't get it done yesterday. Because that's the other thing. Chase Brown's inability to do his job is also why that defense hurts them the way that they do. The Bengals have one speed, and it's full throttle, full speed ahead. They don't get to coast. Imagine having a vehicle, driving a car with no cruise control. That's the Bengals. They can't put anything on cruise control because they can't run the football. Can you imagine if, they were able to run the football and take time off the clock and to keep that defense off the field? You know what I mean? Like, the Bengals have one way of scoring and one way only, and man, are they good at it. They score, and they score quickly, and that's the problem. And it's not a problem, but it's a problem, right? It's a problem that's created based on their deficiencies. That's my problem with it. And if Chase Brown was good at his job, then they would be able to take more time off the clock, and they wouldn't have to constantly put that defense back out there and put the game in their hands. Late in the game, they should have been able to run the ball better against the Jets. They should have been able to run the football better yesterday. That's kind of where I'm at as far as that goes. But you look at some of these issues that the Bengals have had, and it's all on defense. Yes, everyone thinks that offense is perfect. But to me, that offense is not perfect. They are just so damn elite at passing the football that we just think that they don't have a lot of deficiencies and flaws. Their offensive line stinks, and they can't run the football. Chase Brown last week, okay, did have a touchdown, yes, but Chase Brown has not been elite. Samaje Perine, who was just like a lazy offseason addition, had a bigger game than he did the previous week. I'm not a Chase Brown guy. Chase Brown's not good enough to make those comments that he did. This is a guy that when they lost to the Lions had 8 carries and 27 yards. When they lost to the Packers, he had 9 carries for 42 yards. When they lost to the Bears yesterday, 11 carries for 37 yards. I'm sorry. Shut your mouth. You don't get to talk. He had 43 yards on 21 carries against the Browns. He carried the ball 16 times for 47 yards against Jacksonville. My personal favorite performance of the guy that felt he had the right to call out the defense yesterday was when he ran the ball 10 times for a total of 3 yards in week 3 against Minnesota. 10 carries for 40 yards against Denver. 8 carries for 27 yards against Detroit. 9 carries for 42 yards against Green Bay. And then I talked about the 37-yard performance yesterday. This dude thinks he gets to call out the defense? Are you kidding me? Nope. I can't do that. I can't get on board with that. I just can't. All right, I wanted to talk college football. Sorry, I just got distracted by that tweet and the response. Nonetheless, there's going to be a lot to be made of it. Trey Hendrickson yesterday, earlier today, he's quoted as saying that he's not paying attention to trade rumors ahead of Tuesday's deadline. The first comments, he talked about the injury, the hit that knocked him out of the game against the Jets. But the quote that has everybody talking right now from Trey Hendrickson, I am sick for the fans. I am sick for the people that come and watch us. Man, I don't know what to make of Trey Hendrickson, man. Like, he says the right things, but it's what he says every year when he's like, get me out, I want out of here. Like, it's tough to rally behind him. You know, that last caller, he brought up a good point. I'm adamant they should trade Trey Hendrickson because you have the worst defense with them. You can have the worst defense without him. But when you look at how bad they are, like, should they just extend them? Like, the only way the Bengals are going to get out of their own way is to start doing things differently. And, like, I get that they have that philosophy on the 30-year-old pass rusher, and I didn't agree with it, but I didn't disagree with it either. But they can't sit there and continue to preach their philosophy on things when this is the product that's thrown out there every week. I just think that having Trey Hendrickson out there is a building block. And I think it would be very silly at this point because you have literally nothing. You guys, they have nothing. There is not one bright spot on that defense. Literally none. When they would, we were at Frickers yesterday doing the Sunday morning show. And when the Bengals would make a big play, they would start jawing and start taunting and doing stuff. And Shaw was there and some others. And we're all looking at each other like that was kind of cringe. That was kind of uncomfortable. Like, you're a laughing stock of a defense. You don't get to do that. Like, but that's how bad this defense is. I'm like, you take Trey Hendrickson out and he's been out. Who's there? Nobody. They don't have a single soul that is worth a damn on that defensive side of the ball. None. It's frustrating. I don't even know where to start. Where do you go? In the last 5 years, you moved on from Jesse Bates. You know, you've moved on from some of your key leaders. You moved on from, Jermaine Pratt's not an elite defender, but my gosh, I thought he was bad last year. He's not worse than what they have rolling out there this year. I mean, Logan Wilson is like, that's the other thing too we need to bring up. Is Logan Wilson bad, or are they just, well, he doesn't fit our scheme? Is Logan Wilson bad, or is he a good defender that they're just choosing not to use because he doesn't fit our scheme? And maybe change your scheme? You're going to move on from a captain at this deadline, or you're just not going to play him the rest of the year because the scheme? I just, nothing this team does makes sense. There's a certain guy that is in charge of this country that had a famous quote of saying they don't know what the F they're doing. Well, I think you could play that soundbite and it be exactly about the Cincinnati Bengals, because I agree with that individual. They don't know what the F they're doing. That reminds me, tomorrow, November 4th, get out and vote. Just throwing that out there. Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We'll be right back. The Justin Kinner Show. We are back. Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. No show tomorrow. We'll be traveling tomorrow. Wright State, they're in action tonight against Franklin. We leave to California tomorrow for their game coming up on Thursday night when they'll be at Cal. ACC opponent Thursday night. That'll be a late one, but it's travel day tomorrow, so no show. But I'll be doing the show remote for the remainder of the week at Cal. So no show tomorrow. Unfortunate. I'm kind of bummed about that just because the fact it's the trade deadline and there'll be a lot going on. Also, the college football playoff rankings come out tomorrow night. Talked to Jason Fitz earlier. Last week was a scheduled nightmare for both of us, but he'll be back for his regular scheduled visit on Wednesday when we return to the airwaves. We'll have Paul Keels, the voice of the Buckeyes, on Thursday. Chris Collins, voice of the Raiders, he'll hop on with us this week as well as college basketball is officially in full swing. So when we talk to Paul Keels on Thursday, it won't just be about football. We'll ask him about the Buckeyes basketball team too as they tip off later on tonight. They have IU Indy out of the Horizon League coming up at 6:30. And then Wright State will be in action at 7 o'clock. UD in action later on tonight as well. All right. Want to talk football, college football, that is. We've talked a lot of football today. Ohio State, they come away victorious over the weekend. No, and I shouldn't say no surprise there, but there was a little resistance. Penn State did put up a little resistance, and I figured that they would. Look, Penn State, it's been a nightmare of a season for them. Okay? They are 3-5. They started the season 3-0. They've lost 5 straight. This is a team that was picked by many. We kicked off the college football season. We had Phil Steele from the Phil Steele College Football Preview Magazine. He came on, and he said in decades and decades of doing this, going all the way back even to the Joe Paterno era, and those were some great teams he had never picked Penn State to be the favorite heading into a season to win a national championship. That's how highly everyone thought of Penn State. They were national championship, not just contenders, but favorites in the eyes of most, and rightfully so. Penn State checked off a lot of boxes. If you think about the last 2 national champions in college football, you think about Michigan 2 years ago. Yes, they cheated to win a national championship, but they were also the most experienced roster. They had NFL talent on both sides, and a lot of guys, they forewent their NFL. They skipped the NFL to come back another season to fulfill what they set their goals out for, which was to win a national title and to win the Big Ten. Penn State had a great year last year, but they checked off every box. That was Michigan 2 years ago. Ohio State, same thing. Last year, they had a lot of guys that skipped the draft heading into last year so that they could come back with the goal being to beat Michigan and to win a national championship. Well, they accomplished one of those two. Most importantly, they accomplished the most important one, winning a national championship, right? Penn State had the makeups of all those teams. Penn State had the same makeup. It was the same blueprint as Michigan and Ohio State, and they were out of the Big Ten, and it almost just felt like, man, I think Penn State could do this. I think the Big Ten could win 3 straight national championships with 3 different teams, and we've seen the SEC do that before. We've seen them win it with LSU. We've seen them win it with Alabama. We've seen them win it with Georgia. And I thought Penn State was about to embark, or the Big Ten was about to embark on that same run. But obviously that's not the case. This is a team that all their dreams of winning a national championship were shattered before the halfway point of the season. Okay? They fired their head coach before the halfway point of the season. Everything that they sought after to accomplish this season has been thrown out the window. They will not win the Big Ten. They will not get to the national championship. They will not win a national championship. So the only thing that they had left was to try to put a dent in the armor of Ohio State. And to be fair, they almost did. Not almost did, but they gave Ohio State the most resistance that they've had since week 1 against Texas. But I think we can all agree, if you look at who Ohio State is as we sit here at the beginning of November compared to who they were at the end of August, early September, this team is drastically improved. And that speaks volumes about Ryan Day and the job that he's done and his staff has done. They've done a phenomenal job. But it was 17-14 at halftime. And it there was a good chance it could have been 20 or 24-7 at halftime, but a Donaldson turnover, deep in Buckeye territory just basically handed them points. And I thought they'd maybe come away with the field goal, but they came away with the touchdown. But to their credit, and I talked about this with Byers because I was at the game over the weekend, and so was KB. And one thing we talked about when we were watching the game was there was a stretch where coming out of the tunnel at halftime, Ohio State, they send their band, not their band, but their cheerleaders out on the field. They beeline it out there. And then Penn State, they were instructed to just bolt out in front of Ohio State. And it led to there was almost a scuffle. The crowd starts booing. And I'm like, okay, they're feeling themselves. Penn State, that was a big deal. They weren't leading at halftime, but it felt like it. They may as well have been leading at halftime because, man, Ohio State, it was like you felt like they were toying with their food. I mean, Tate was unbelievable. Jeremiah Smith, we're talking about Julian Sain here in a moment. But the Buckeyes should have been up way more than what they were, only 3 measly points. But to the Ohio State's credit, Penn State was trying to poke the bear, and they got clawed. They got pounded right away. They got beat up right away. And Ohio State just came out and made quick work. 21 unanswered points in the second half. Penn State didn't even score a single point. Ohio State physically dominated Penn State, and it was refreshing to see. You know, for years, I mocked Ryan Day. When Ryan Day would do the whole, we're a tough football team, I would always respond with, no, you're not. You're not. Ohio State's, they have not been a tough football team for a while. They're not tough in the trenches or haven't been. This is a tough football team, though. I agree with it 100% now. I'm a Ryan Day, who I've always been kind of lukewarm on. I can't believe the job he has done at Ohio State over the last, not even calendar year. Over the last 11 months, what he has been able to do is pretty damn remarkable. I just don't get it. I've never seen it. Like, we're watching a lot of programs who have just pulled the plug on their coaches. Every Sunday, a high profile name, Gus Malzahn most recently, every Sunday, not Gus Malzahn, sorry, but every Sunday, a high profile coach has been fired, right? Every Sunday. And I keep thinking, every one of those coaches were at a point that we felt Ohio State was at with Ryan Day after that Michigan game last year. The Buckeyes stuck with their head coach. And now look, we forget that the narrative was just that this guy can't win big games and that his teams aren't tough. Now all Ryan Day does is win big games, and his teams are physically dominating teams. Ohio State had not physically dominated teams in forever. They're physically punching teams in the mouth right now. It's been quite a turnaround. And no one deserves, like, I'm so happy. Like, when the Buckeyes achieve something, I'm so happy for Ryan Day because I think he deserves it. He was at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, fans, including us, we were burying the guy. And for him to turn it around the way he has, I give him a ton of credit. And I think there's a reason while all these other programs are floundering and trying to reestablish their culture, there's Ryan Day. The culture was don't quit, don't give up. And that sounds so generic and so cheesy and all that, but damn it, it's just cool seeing Ohio State do this the right way. And they've adapted to the NIL practices and principles, and yet they've been able to keep the good chunk and core of their roster. The season's not done yet. They got to go out there and finish the job. But to be at this point, for Ryan Day to completely flip the script on the narrative, that was a hell of a win over the weekend. And by the way, Julian Sain, we're going to spend more time on this later in the week. Julian Sain might win a Heisman this year. That's pretty damn remarkable as well. I mean, I think Julian Sain can win it, and I think he should. He's so dang efficient, 20 of 24 for 311 yards and 4 touchdowns. Carnell Tate's a freaking beast. Unbelievable. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out. We do got Wright State basketball coming up later on this evening. No show tomorrow. I'm on the road with the team. We're heading to California for their game on Thursday, so a travel day tomorrow. No show, but we'll be right back on Wednesday. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports will join us as well. Until then, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday night. Hang out with us later tonight for Wright State basketball at 7 o'clock. But until Wednesday, this has been the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits.
Radio home for Buckeye football. 14